All right, you guys, welcome into a brand new episode of the Growth Grit Grind podcast. I'm excited today. As I told you, we've got some guests lined up. They're going to be coming on. We'll still continue to do our me solo dolo and knock out some of these kind of trainings. And just again, those topics kind of come up as I'm having conversations with clients and other business owners and networking groups I'm in. And a lot of it is informational, educational, and it helps me. And so we relay it to hopefully help you. But today, we've got Edward Gonzalez with us. Edward Gonzalez is the owner of EG Home Renovations, based locally here in DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth area. And he's got a pretty cool business, and I've gotten to know Edward over the last, I guess, couple of years now. And he's got a unique business. May say, oh, well, what is he, a contractor? Like there's a million contractors out there. Yeah, but, Edward specializes in, he wants to really, as we've talked through like what his business is focused on, he really wants to focus on kind of transforming spaces. Like you can hire a painter, or you can hire, a mason, or you can hire these different guys to come in and like throw a shower in your bathroom or whatever it is. But when they're focused on these projects, hearing him and kind of his story and kind of focus of their company, they really want to focus on that design aspect, like of giving you something functional. Of like you want to redo your kitchen, like they want to make sure that when the project is done, you look at it and go, this is exactly what I was envisioning. And Edward's got a great eye for that. So Edward, man, I want to thank you for being on here to take some time. I know the contracting world is a hectic and busy one. It's really just kind of nonstop. I know you guys just started a couple of new projects, so I appreciate you blocking out some time to hop on with me.
Nah, thank you, DJ, for having me. Yeah, I mean that's why I'm doing the podcast in my truck. Got approved for a job starting it today, so I was running like a chicken without a head this morning, taking material for the guys. So I had this time to do this podcast. So thank you.
Absolutely, man. So tell us a little bit more. Obviously, I try to give you a little bit of intro there. I know a little bit about your business, but tell us a little bit more about what the focus of EG Home Renovations is.
Yeah, man, like you said, specialize in interior, exterior painting. Our main focus is bathroom or kitchen remodels, as well as a full renovation of a house. But we do other stuff as well as flooring, siding trim installation, door installations, all that good stuff. Any type of home improvement you can think of, we can knock it out for you. But our main focus are kitchens and bathrooms. Like you said, we serve all DFW Metroplex. And you could say our bread and butter is painting because when I started in construction, I became a painter, so that's why we like to do painting, full house painting, cabinetry painting, kitchens, stuff like that.
That's awesome, man. And I know that, like, I guess what is it? It's bathrooms. And I've always heard this. Like, I'm not a realtor. I've never been in the realtor space, but I hear from a lot of them that those are the money makers, right? Like kitchens and bathrooms are like what really sell houses, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I know a couple of realtors that give me a lot of referrals from customers that don't like these builder grade kitchens and bathrooms because sometimes they don't make sense. Honestly, they don't. I was like, well, when I look at them, like, what? Yeah, let's get this whole thing to studs and make your vision come true.
Yeah, man. I think it's, you get these, for the most part, unless, you go into, a $750,000 house or $1.5 million house where literally you got
Yeah,
to
these custom
customize
homes.
every little piece and crook and cranny, but like most of these, they're, to a certain degree, they can call them custom homes, but reality is like there's, 8 blueprints in the entire neighborhood, and it's just a duplication of 8 of the same houses over and over again. And so you get into those where, like I use my wife as an example. We were in our house and she did, we got to pick out quite a bit, not necessarily layout and things like that, but she got to pick out, cabinet colors and, the countertops and the flooring and stuff. Man, we weren't here barely 2 years. And she was like, I want to change the cabinet colors. And it's just one of those that like they didn't offer that color, they didn't offer the color
Yeah,
she wound up going to. So she's settled, so I think it's a, you live in that house long enough and you plan on being there long enough, or you're turning around trying to sell it and you got to update some stuff for sure.
yeah, it definitely will help with the return on investments if you put some money into it. Definitely, if you try to
Yeah.
sell it.
Well, and you're one of those guys that, most people should trust with that. Like if you're looking at and going, hey, we're thinking about selling this house, and either it's right now or it's, 5 years from now, and they want to talk to somebody like you and be like, what is something that I could invest in that would be a good return on my investment? You talk about like pools and stuff. Like pools, you typically don't get your money back out of. You might get a certain percentage of your money back, but it's going to
Yeah.
be like a quarter or maybe a half if you're really lucky. But for a homeowner to be able to ask you and say, realistically, if I put my money into something in my house, what in your opinion, I mean, what would that be? I mean, and I'm assuming just from what I've heard, it really is. I mean, kitchens is probably number one to me. I think that if you spend the money there and spruce up that kitchen, it really, helps sell that home.
Man, surprisingly, believe it or not, kitchen and bathroom are top three, but from my knowledge and from what I've seen, flooring is the number one.
Really? See, and I wouldn't have thought of
Hardwood
that.
flooring. Yeah,
Yeah, that
hardwood
makes sense.
flooring, that's a big one right there.
Well, it's
A
the
lot of
first thing
like,
people see when they walk in too.
yep.
What stands
So,
out to them?
but
Well,
I
hey,
mean,
let's go ahead. I love it.
no, I
Give
was
me all the
like,
knowledge.
I was saying that flooring, I think is number one. I may be wrong, but I think flooring may be one, and then kitchen and bathroom are number two and three.
That makes sense, and I'm glad you said flooring because that, like I said, and my wife's been talking about our flooring, and we're not doing that yet. I'll give you a call. I'll give you a call when I finally cave, but we're not doing that just yet.
Yeah.
So let's dive in. Our normal structures, like man, we want to know where you got started. I mean, you kind of alluded to that a little bit. You talked about when you got in construction, you were doing painting, but I guess walk us through that realistically, kind of what you were doing before you started working for yourself and started your company. But then also give us that moment of like, is there something at what point in time did you wake up one morning and go, man, I'm tired of painting for somebody else and I want to go do it for myself? You know, I guess just walk us through that. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing before and how it led up to, you know, you having the idea like, I want to start my own company.
Yeah, well, long story short, between my early 20s, you could say, I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do with life, man, to be honest with you. So I was on and off jobs here and there. I think the longest I would stay at a job was like maybe 3 months and then look for something else. But then my brother-in-law, so my wife's family, they come from California. So he's been a painter since California, then they moved to Texas. So he would see me on and off jobs here and there. And he was like, "Hey man, if you ever want to try painting, come work with me. Even if it's you're just talking to me, since I get bored alone." And I tried it. I was on and off with him for about, let's say, between 5 to 10 years. Same thing. Go work 3 months, leave, come back, stuff like that. Before opening my company, I used to work for a financial company in Arlington, big financial company. And the thing about me is I don't like to stay put at a position. I like to grow. So I became a supervisor within about like 8 months at that company. But man, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. Supervisor to me, in my eyes, was a dope babysitter. I had to be on people to do their work, and it wasn't me. At that time, I was engaged to now my wife, and I told her, I was like, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna go back work with Miguel. That's my brother-in-law, and money's about the same, and that's I like getting my hands, dirty, as you could say. I'm hands-on." And she was like, "All right, that's fine, but once we get married, you're gonna have to open your own." So I think that's when I realized I had to open my thing. And I don't know if now that I think of it, I don't know if my brother-in-law was molding me to do my own thing because he would, since I was his only fluent English speaker, I was one talking to the customer. I was one go getting material for him, kind of telling them. He would tell me, "Hey, tell the guys we need to do this, this, and that." Even though he already had his tenured guys that basically run the jobs, I would tell him, "Hey, we got to do this, this, and that. Customer, we're gonna do this, and that." So I don't know if he was molding me to do my own company. So then back in 2020, we were supposed to get married 2020, but then obviously COVID happened. We had to push that back, and then 2021 we got married, and then that's early 2021 we got married, and then late 2021, EG Home Renovations was born.
Man, that's awesome. Ashley Bledsoe, which I know you know, she said whenever I
Hmm.
had her on, she said typically, businesses are birthed out of, she used a different expression for it, but essentially desperation or aspiration. It's that you're either in a moment where you've got no other direction to go or you just aspire to something more. And to me, it sounds like you had a little bit of both. You had your wife that was like, hey, you're going to go do it for yourself. Like, we're not going to build
Yeah.
someone else's dream, even though, it's our brother or whatever. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's like now you've got your own family. Like, you've got your
Hmm.
wife now, and then eventually your kiddos, you've got something bigger to try to build for. So that's, I think you're in a little bit so far at pretty much everyone we've interviewed that they really do fit one of two of those buckets, if not kind of a mold of both. I don't think anybody just
Yeah.
wakes up and goes, man, I'm going to stop working this 40-hour a week to start working 60 or 75 hours a week for at first the same amount of money and, or less,
Or
in the
less.
beginning. Yeah. So I don't think anybody does it that way. I think there's definitely aspiration, desperation element to everyone. And so far it's kind of proved true. What did you guys do? So, I mean, starting a business is can have its obviously scary elements. It has its rocky roads, especially early on when you're trying to figure things out. So, what was when you made that decision? You guys got married. It was kind of part of the plan, but then you said, this is day one. Like, we're either going down and registering the DBA or the LLC, and we're putting those, like, what were steps like 1 through 3? Like, how in your mind did you go, I've got to get this thing off the ground and I need work?
I think honestly, I would have this conversation too with the other business owner. I think I like did backwards. So I opened the LLC, right? But being first, uh, I guess you could say it's first generation Mexican American, you're taught, go to school, get a degree, and work rest of your life, right? So being a business owner, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. All I know is I needed an LLC, and that was about it. So I did that, and then I guess I reached out to a company to make a logo. This wasn't the original logo. My logo was way busier. It was too much. It was a lot. And then from there, what I thought was gonna be easy was like, all right, well, I made my company. I posted it on social media. Now work's gonna start flowing in. Nope, it did not happen that way. And then
That's what
I
we
would.
all think, right?
It didn't happen that way. So then I started to, like, you could say, plug into marketing meetings. As you can tell, I'm sure for the first time you met me, I was real shy. I would go to the business card exchange with Wiley. I think that's where I met majority of these guys. And I would just get my business card and I would just read it and not look at nobody and just read it. And then so those were the first couple of steps. Then after that, then I was like, I'll get intimidated, I guess you could say, because everybody was already, they had years in business. I didn't know what DBA was. I didn't know what ROI was. I didn't know what overhead was. And I would get overwhelmed because that's what our meetings were about. I was like, man, I think I'm chewing too much. I got to step back. I'm leaving. And I think it was you that I like reached out. We had our one-on-one, and he was like, man, as you grow, you learn. We all started like this. I don't think nobody was handed, as the marketing meetings were part of, nobody was handed the business and how to run it. Um, the other way, yeah, I know all the labor part. Give me a tool belt, I know what to do, stuff like that. But running a business, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And then as as you grow, you start to learn. All right, I need to do this. Oh, I need insurance. And then slowly, all the referral partners started to come in. That's when the work started to come in and all that good stuff. But yeah, it was a whole different what I had in mind. I posted on social media. And then I was like, yeah, I'm waiting for I got stickers, the magnets for the truck. And I was like, man, I'm just waiting for the phone call to ring and my first job's gonna land. Nah, it was months until I landed my first job.
Yeah, I think we all have that. We all have that idea. I mean, every single one of us does. I mean, and I don't care what business you're starting or in. I mean, I would say some are maybe more fortunate than others that they've got some type of immediate connection or someone in their family or something like that. I mean, with me, and I've talked about my story a little bit. I mean, and a little bit of it too. But with me, I was in construction management,
Yeah,
and social media marketing and advertising was always a part of what I did. But it was only an element of it. Like mine was more about like opening and growing and staff members and things like that. It was marketing and advertising was only a small piece of it. But I had, I guess I call it an advantage, but it was also a disadvantage, is that I had some small, little clients over just the last 10 years that I'd helped, mostly friends and family, and then some of our own personal stuff that we had worked on. But then as we got to Wiley, I started meeting some folks just around, not even really networking for any type of business, just meeting them from my neighborhood or whatever it may be. And a couple of them were like, man, I own a business. Like, if you know how to do that, like, why don't you help me do it? And, I had no pricing structure. Like, I didn't have any of that because, like you said, you have a concept in your mind of like how that should look and how it should go. And then it actually becomes reality and you go, this is not at all what I thought it was going to be or what it should be. So I don't really know what to do. And so you made a really good point there. And I think it's a point that anytime someone says something that I want our audience to really hear is that you're not going to know. You're not going to know from day
yeah,
one. Should you have, we talked about business plans a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. I mean, you should have a plan, but then as you actually put that into execution and you actually start trying to walk it out, like, you're going to have to adapt a little bit and you're going to learn a little bit as you go, and I
yeah.
recall that conversation. I recall kind of me or seeing you for the first time at the card exchange. And it's just, I think it's how we all are, is we all see someone else that has like the experience and has been doing it a while. And they start talking about words and using acronyms that we're like, I am way in over my head. Like, I don't even know remotely what they're talking. We're like over there Googling terms in the middle of the meeting to try to figure out what in the world they're talking about. But I think that's part of it, man. I think it's part of the journey, is that you can't always, somebody that I'm close to and that I admire. She uses, and I've actually had her on the podcast. She uses a term that's done is better than perfect. And while I agree with that, I think there's a level to where you go back and you want to refine it and you want to make it better. But I think in the beginning is sometimes you just got to. It's kind of like jumping in the shark tank. Like you just sometimes got to jump in and figure out how to swim as you kind of go. And it's
Yeah.
scary. I mean, but I think that's business in general, especially starting. So I guess fast forwarding, kind of moving forward, after you launched, you had no idea what you're doing, right? Like you went and got that. And it's funny you say LLC. Like it's just funny because I think that's what, like, logo LLC. Where's the business at, man? Like I should have it all just flowing in. Like that's what we
Yeah.
perceive as how it works, and it takes a little bit more than that. But now, after your first, let's say you landed your first job or two, how did things start to change? Did you start to like understand things more, or did you kind of change anything about how you were, trying to get business? Obviously, now you've got a couple clients under your belt, maybe a couple referrals or reviews. But how did that change from like day one to now you're several months down the road, and you're seeing, possibly a different way of doing things? Did something change there to how you went about trying to get business?
Well, yeah, I think these marketing meetings really help me a lot. Well, we talk about the relationships we build, talking to them, hey, what are you doing? I remember when we started, I think the pages were starting about the same time, or they already had their a couple of years starting their, I mean, couple of months starting their business. So honestly, I hit it off with Jake, and I would just like pick his brain, and he would just tell me the same thing. He was like, man, you just learn as you grow. I mean, I'm the same way you are. We know the work, the labor, but the business part is getting hard. And then just talking to different people what they were doing, um, learning from the marketing meetings. I'm like, okay, well, I need this. I can't do everything by myself. I have to, hire people or build a team. Because at first I was hands on, labor, and then go home, uh, do estimates, and then I was staying up 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and then having a newborn thing, trying to be a dad, and it was just, I mean, I was going crazy. So then people were saying, man, you can't do it by yourself. If you're trying to grow, you're gonna have to, get a marketing team, which, hire you guys and get somebody to run your social media, do it because you're gonna go crazy. So I started learning how to adapt, being a business owner, not doing everything on my own, not wanting all the income we make for myself. I had to reinvest it into the company as well. That's when I, bought a van, hire more people to get more work done, different logo, just invested in a company to where, I made a name for myself, open social media platforms, made Google reviews, because nowadays, if you want to try something up, oh, let's go look at the reviews. So I needed that. Working on a web, what do you call it? Uh, I just brain fart. Well, I'm currently working on a website as well. So just doing all this stuff and not wanting to keep the money on for myself.
And I think it's a struggle. I mean, I think that we all deal with that. And I talked about it fairly recently. Is like typically when we go into business, as things start to progress, as your business, maybe
Hmm.
not in the beginning. Sometimes we're working for free or very little money, and we're just like, man, can I pay my bills? Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And you start to get nervous. You're like, man, we got like a limit. Like you're like, we're gonna keep trying this for no 3 or 4 months, but after that, I'm gonna have to go back and do something else. I think a lot of us go through that. But I think that we hit a certain point. We start bringing in work, start bringing in business that all of us have to have that moment. And the fact that you kind of saw that early on, I think is super important. It's a nugget that people should take, is that I think you've got to measure it. Like if you're only making a couple $1,000s, then you're like, that's literally all I brought in, and I've got to play catch up on bills. That's all I have available. But as soon as you start to exceed that, when you start to exceed like what your raw operating costs are, which are in the beginning, it's like your rent or your mortgage, your car payment, like your normal life stuff, your family
Yeah.
stuff. But then as soon as you start to surpass that, maybe not day one, but as you start to see that you have an excess, then that's where that should be the trigger point of like, okay, I can't do all of this completely on my own forever. I've got to look at where the kind of missing pieces, like with you in the beginning, owner operator, it's like if you're on a tile job, then that's the only job you can be on. Like, even if somebody calls and is like, yeah, I mean, you could book them for a few weeks out or something like that, but you run the risk of, ah, man, I really want this done. I want to get started. And then, somebody else calls. They're like, I've got this paint job. And you're like, well, I can get to you in, 6 weeks. And they're like, oh, no, man, I'll find somebody else. You start to run into those roadblocks to where if you did expand a little bit, and yeah, you got to go invest. Like you said, you got the van, you got some other guys to help you, but marketing, all of it. I mean, I don't care what it is, payroll, bookkeeping, like all that different stuff, that at a certain point, if it makes sense for you to have somebody that is skilled in that area to where you have to worry about less. Like the ones that I feel like continue to try to tackle everything themselves for years, that's where they're capped, man. Like they can only do so much
Yeah.
revenue, and so there's only so many hours in the day. I don't care how many of them you work. There's only so much time in the day that you're not going to be able to continue to scale. And you probably, if you look back, you probably held yourself at a certain point for a couple of years that you could have already been scaling past and going past where you were. I just think people miss that point, that they get to that point and they go, man, more money, more money, more money. And it's like, all of it's great, but at a certain point, now you've capped yourself, and you may have put yourself in a position where your lifestyle has now continued to climb to match that revenue. And then it's
Yeah.
hard because at that point, you've got to start scaling stuff crazy back to be able to afford the personal assistant or afford another van or afford a couple of guys that are going to be on with you full time, or marketing or bookkeeping or any of it. You've got to go, man, we probably shouldn't have bought the, freaking side by side that cost us $600 a month. You know what I mean? Like that, but we needed it for work, but like
Yeah.
you have to go backwards then. And you go, man, that $600 could have been could have went towards marketing, advertising. It could have went towards paying a CPA or bookkeeper. That would make my life easier. I think we missed that point. And it's easy to do it because the money's rolling in. You're excited. You're like, oh, I got it. I can handle it. But then
Yeah.
eventually you hit the roadblock. So what did you kind of fast forwarding again, going into, say, your second year, or I'm sorry, fast forward to get through your first year, maybe halfway through your first or your second year, did anything really change, then, as far as like you're going to the networking meetings, you're doing that? I mean, what was your main focus? Was it really building out like referral partners, or, what was your really focus going into that? What did you see that was working and you wanted to kind of expedite that? And while you're telling the folks about that, I'm gonna plug this laptop in so it doesn't die because I'm unprofessional with this.
No, you good. I think what really helped me out was making building relationships with the people refer partners. Because honestly, at first, when I would go to these meetings, I thought since I was like the only contractor, I knew how to do multiple things. That I was gonna get just people were just like, "Hey, I have this customer. Can you help them out? I'm gonna give you their name and number, this and that." But it was the total opposite. So I think building a relationship was one with different people that I knew that we could benefit from each other, like realtors or just in general the whole marketing, whatever group we are. I think I have a great relationship with a lot of people in different ones. Um, and then another thing that really helped out that I saw was when I started to, hire or, reinvest my money into my company. And I just felt like a big weight lifted off my shoulders when I did that. And then just slowly, like work started slowly coming in, little by little, and then we're constantly being booked, and just doing the right thing at work. I think that's what really helps out a lot. Because if you do the right thing or, making the vision come true to the customer, your work speaks for itself, and then the work just slowly starts coming in. Like thank God, this year is our third year of business, as EG Home Renovations. Obviously, I have the background 15 plus years, plus with the guys multiple years. So this is the third year, and I feel like second year, halfway through the year, that's when, it was a whole different ball game. Once I started connecting with different referral partners, actually plugging into my business, not just wanting all the money for myself, slowly it started transitioning, and thank God, we're booked out now 2.5 months.
Yeah, I think you hit a couple key things there. I mean, talking about the networking groups and things like that is people again miss the mark there, and I think all of us can in the beginning because it's a little bit of desperation. Like when we're first launching our businesses, we walk in those rooms and we're just like, where are the referrals at? Who's got business for me? That type of thing. But as we transition to, and I like to use the term like relational versus transactional, is that once we start really looking at it from a relationship standpoint and we stop looking at it less transactional, as I've heard people say about, networking groups, chambers of commerce, like just across the board, that, man, like I just don't get any value out of it. I don't get any value out of it. And I think the problem is that they walk in there transactional. And if they don't leave with a lead or, an appointment or an estimate or whatever it may be,
Yeah,
then they go, well, man, this isn't working. And it's like, well, reality is like the people don't know you and you're going in there looking for something from them versus looking for a relationship from them. And I think that there are both sides. I think from a business perspective, and I don't know about yours, I know specifically with ours, we absolutely have clients who are transactional, not intentionally because of us, but just the need that we serve for them. They're looking for, like, I need a solution. You provide a solution. Here's my money. You handle it. Whereas I'd say probably 80-90% of our clients are actually relational. Like, we have a great relationship with them. We talk to them on a regular basis. Then we have some that very rarely do we talk to. And we kind of leave that up to our clients. Like, if they need to hear from us, like, very frequently, and they need extra reports over the average person, then that's great. Most of our clients really don't in that sense, because they're like, man, we're paying to trust you. And like, I don't need another report rolling through my email. I don't need another email rolling through my inbox.
Yeah.
Like, I just need to trust that you're handling it. And sure, let's recap, once a month, once a quarter, whatever. But I think we have to figure that out. Is like, as business progresses, you'll find people and clients who are more transactional. But then I think our focus is always relational, is that we want to build that relationship, especially when we're talking about like referral partners and things like that. If that's a significant part of your business, learning how to make sure you have that relationship there, where it's not always you walking going, what do you got for me today, man? What
Yeah.
can you give me? What can you give me today? And I think it's reciprocal too. It's like, sometimes you're able to refer stuff back to, like, I know you're working with an interior designer that's a part of some of our groups, and like, some of those things, there's synergy partners there too, that it's like both ways it can be or relational, but also transactional. No, and I think that's good. Did you run into, just talking about going into now your third year, but maybe into your second year, were there any new challenges that you faced that you didn't really, I mean, obviously in the beginning you have all the startup stuff, like, I need work, I need to find work, I need to hire guys, I need to get a van. Did you have anything going into that second or third year now that is another obstacle that you said, okay, this is a growth obstacle, like, we're scaling up and we're doing more work, doing more jobs? Was there anything else that, and if the answer is no, the answer is no, but I know that a lot of times in that point we face new challenges we haven't faced before.
Yeah, I think for me it was I think in the estimate bids being, how would you say, I guess more professional, wording it out, having signatures, the warranty, all that stuff. Back then I was just we're gonna do XYZ, this is the amount, and that's it. I wouldn't even include their name. I think I would just include their name. Uh but being more professional, having, attachments, having signatures, both party, mine and homeowner, stuff like that. Just being, I guess you could say, more professional, because like I said, being first as a Hispanic, some of us just go be like, oh, it's gonna cost you X amount and that's it. So there's no contract. You know what I mean? I think that's what really helped my business as well.
Yeah, I think it separates you. I mean, and it's I remember the and I don't know if you ever heard it, but it just makes me laugh. Like, George Lopez, love George Lopez. I'm a huge stand up comedian fan, and I like to watch a lot of stand up comedy. But George Lopez, he talked about like having some guys over his house, and he was like, man, he's like, you got to get the right guys out there. He's like, you need the guys out there that, like, they got their shirt off already. He's like, and they're like, he said, that's how we measure. That's how we measure. And they're like,
Yeah,
$600. And you're like, okay, cool. Sounds good. But no, I think and it's a funny bit, but you're separating yourself that way. Like, you're moving it to another level of saying, like, and that's a roadblock and a challenge, is like, you sit back and go, how do we improve things? How do we make them better? How do we make the customer experience better? How do we make the customer feel more comfortable? How do we distinguish ourselves from, the other folks that may also be showing up to bid the job? I mean, because you never know with construction, sometimes it's that way. They reach out to you, but they've also reached out to three other people too.
yeah,
And sometimes it's not even price point. And that, I mean, sometimes you don't have to be the cheapest to get the job. In some cases you might have to, but in a lot of cases they're looking for that they're being heard, and that their vision is being interpreted by you, and that you're able to deliver something back to them that feels like it checks all those boxes for them. And sometimes that's where it comes from. It's that extra step of adding some attachments or a drawing or something that no one else gave them, that they just got, like, a little, maybe it's on paper, that it's
yeah,
written out or whatever, and I don't think it really matters. Sometimes you can lose those jobs in the details. So I think that's it. No, I think in construction particularly, I think having those details there where they feel more comfortable, and that there's a warranty attached to it, and that your signature's on it. It's not just like, hey man, here's a napkin with a price on it. Yeah. So, I guess going forward, looking at the future for you guys, you're going into year three, which, I mean, congrats. I mean, obviously, like, a year in business is like a huge kudos for anybody. Going 2 years and then going into 3 years, and, even fast forwarding onto that, like, that 5 year mark. I mean, they're huge milestones for any business. What are you guys looking at, I guess, in the future, looking at the rest of this year and I guess on to year five? Is there anything in particular that you're, as a part of your plan or vision that you have in your head, are you wanting to expand to more trucks? Are you wanting to add any additional services, or really hone in on certain services and kind of lose some of the other ones? Like, just tell me what kind of, you guys, fast forward, if you had to look at it 2 years down the road from now, where you guys want to be.
well, yeah, definitely. I kind of, well, I do want to have more vans for my guys. Hire, yeah, obviously grow. What I have envisioned for the company is get into commercial. One because it's well, obviously more paid, and you could say less of a stress in that sense of work wise. But yeah, I mean, just continue to grow, not too much where I'm not able to handle it. Because I do kind of want to do be just like, just majority owner, as is. But if it grows to where I need a partner, why not? But I want to get into commercial, and then I was asked this question too, and then just maybe become a custom builder, e.g. custom homes. But we'll see. But for sure, get into commercial.
You heard it here first, folks. If you're looking to build a custom home in 2026, this is the
Maybe.
guy. 2027, 2020. Let's give you an extra year. No, I think I mean, and it's important. And that's why I always ask that question, because number one, I like to see that entrepreneurs and business owners I think there's a certain level. I don't want to call it plateau because that sounds negative, but there are certain businesses that reach a certain pinnacle that they go, I'm kind of comfortable here. And
Yeah.
I don't personally like that. Like I just I feel like the entrepreneur spirit, business owner spirit, that kind of type A personality is like, they always are looking at the next thing. But I think there is a certain level that you get to that you go, this is good. Like, we're doing well. My people are taken care of. We've grown the team. It's the right level of stress that I'm willing to deal with. But, looking at where you guys are, typically that might be 6, 8, 10 years down the road. You hit that mark and go, I'm fine with here. I don't have to go do the hustle and grind and continue trying to add, another 6 figures to the end, end of the year business number. But looking forward is like, that's what I like to hear. And I think it just gives everyone a picture, is that I think everyone should be sitting back, and even if it's not 6 months from now or a year from now, have some type of vision of where you're wanting to go. And it gives you something to look forward to. It gives you something to plan for. And because it becomes the difference. In the beginning, it's about our vision is starting the company and what that's going to do for
Yeah.
us and what it's going to do for our family. And that always stays the like top of mind focus. But then I do think there's a thing where it kind of shifts a little bit as you start to get more and more people in your organization, that it becomes somewhat about them too. They become a little bit of your family, and you want them to be taken care of, and you want them to have work and all those different things. So no, I think that's cool. You guys are trying to go that route. All right, this is the, I want to call it the big question because it's not really pressure. There's a question I like to close with every time is, if you had to go back to your 15, 17, 18-year-old self, or talk to someone that is in that age range that is, I call them entrepreneurs. They like the entrepreneur thing. They watch business shows on TV. They're researching it and they want to go start a business one day. What's one piece of advice from your experience that you would give to them, whether it was you back then or a kid that's that age now that's wanting to start a business down the road? What one piece of advice would you give them from your experience?
Uh, Piece of advice and then that I learned and that I apply like now. I think that's what really helped me, grow. Is one, tell the truth. Tell the truth. Whatever field you're gonna get into it, learn it, read books, audio books, YouTube, whatever the case, and really learn it. And then be genuine again. At the end of the day, you're getting hired to make, either make their vision come true. So be genuine. And then two, I mean, that's one, two, three, four. One thing that really, and I keep that in mind, is the only competition you have is yourself. Um, don't think of if you're gonna go into the electrical field, marketing, whatever team, whatever the case may be. There's multiple companies out there. Don't see them as your competitor. You even pick their brain. What do they do and what do they recommend? And that's what really helped me out a lot to grow. I would see other contractors are my competitors. My brother-in-law is my competitor, but yeah, the only competition I have is myself. So those are the things I was either when I was younger, tell myself, or a young entrepreneur trying to, get into a business.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I heard a long time ago you talk about reading and researching. I've been a fan or a student of marketing, advertising, and just business in general for a long time because it fascinates me. It's more part of the reason why I even started this podcast. But I heard a long time ago when you talked about, Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola has been number one in the United States overall. Like you talked about Texas, probably Dr. Pepper, but Coca-Cola overall as a brand has been number one. Coca-Cola has never, in the history of their advertising, ever addressed number two, which is Pepsi Cola. They've never addressed them. They've never made a smear campaign. They've never done a taste test. They've never done, because to them, there is no number two.
Yep.
They're number one. So there's no number two. So I think that that applies to that. And I feel the same way. As I think that the only obstacle that most businesses have, there are legitimate obstacles, but at the end of the day, it's typically mindset. Like there's a way around that obstacle. But if you only see it as an obstacle and you only see it as a roadblock and as a no or as a not right now, then that's the way you're going to see it. And you're going to continue to interpret that way. And you're not going to be able to move past it until you're able to see that, like, the only thing really standing in my way is me. So if I have
Yep.
limiting beliefs and I have self-doubt, then that's what's going to hold me back. So, man, super, super, super good stuff. Here's what I want to wrap up with. I want you to tell people how they can get in touch with you. If somebody happens to be watching this and they go, hey, I'm thinking about a project, and I live in DFW. Like, let me see if I can get a bid from this guy right here. So how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way? Tell them about your social media and however else you want to tell them how to contact you.
Yeah, on social media, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, both as EG Home Renovations LLC. Uh, Phone number I can be reached at is 214-663-7548. Email is company, basically EG Home Renovations LLC at Gmail. Um, those are pretty much. Website is currently being brought to life, so I'll have a website here soon as well.
Beautiful. So yeah, you guys go follow this guy on social media, check him out, see some of the stuff they're doing. If you like to be one of those little stalkers on the Facebook or Instagram and you want to go peep him out before you give him a call, then feel free to go check out some of his stuff. And as he mentioned, we do some stuff for him. So we got some cool video work we're working on right now of a kitchen reno that they're doing. So here in the next few weeks, you'll be able to see the kind of final product and we'll have that thing out there. But man, Edward, I want to thank you again for hopping on and spending a little bit of time with me. We did this thing in 35 minutes, which is awesome. That's kind of, we have no time limit, but that's right in the wheelhouse. But man, I just want to thank you for taking some time out again and being on here with us.
Thank you, DJ, for having me.
All right, you guys, that is the wrap up for this episode of the Growth Grit Grind podcast. Look, if you're listening or watching over on YouTube, make sure you like the video, drop us a little comment. You can subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you there. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure if you leave us a review, or you can go ahead and follow us there as well so you know when the next episodes are coming out. We just want to say thank you to all of y'all. It's awesome to see the downloads and the views. See you guys next time. Take it easy.